you have to know where you are on your journey. But I think the most important thing that I could say to an entrepreneur is you have to keep reading and keep learning. Like, that's what's helped me the most. Is it's not that I just figured this all out. You know, I'm an avid reader. If I'm not reading, I'm listening to a book in the car. These podcasts, I mean, I think they're fantastic because you're able to get some insight. 30 minutes in your car and you can learn something new. And I think that's what it is. You just have to keep learning.
This is Pittsburgh, a place where a rich heritage of making things and a fierce, independent nature come together to create a thriving entrepreneurial community. Whether you're a small business owner looking for ideas or inspiration, or you're an enthusiastic supporter of local businesses, you'll find it here. I'm your host, Darin Vilano, and this is the Proprietors of Pittsburgh podcast. So I'm here with Nick Bogacz, who's my guest today. He is the owner of Caliente Pizza and Draft House. Thanks so much for being on the show, Nick. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So you're in one of your stores right here. So you have 5 locations, is that right? 5?
Correct.
That's a pretty big operation for a local business, 5 locations. So tell me, what has been one of the most challenging aspects of your growth? I mean, to get to 5 locations, what's challenged you to do that?
I think there's a lot of different challenges. I think for us, it's not always been about making more money or opening more stores. It's about the opportunity we create for our employees that work so hard for us and wanting to create career positions for them. For a lot of times, growing up in the franchise world of the pizza industry, like I did, you get so high, and then you run a store so well for a corporate structure. You call them up and say, "Hey, I want to be a franchisee," and they may ask you, what's your net worth? And for a kid under 30, you're like, what the heck's net worth? And what we're trying to do is really have career opportunities here for people in our company, and that's really where we strive. So we don't open the new stores for us. We open them more for opportunities that we can build for our. So
you're pretty
employees.
Careful in how you build them. I mean, how is your growth? The 5 stores, is it taken? How many years is that taken to get to this point?
So we opened our 5th store in February of 19, and we opened our first store in September of 2012.
Wow.
So probably about like six years
pretty
and
good,
4 months.
Still pretty good rate. Pretty good growth rate, right?
Yeah,
that's great. And so you're using this. You're cultivating your talent inside your organization. So you're putting people in positions of management. I'm assuming as you're opening up new locations and you're growing, so you're able to give them those career opportunities. Correct?
Yeah, it's absolutely correct. We have over 200 employees, 33 managers. Of the 33 managers, I believe 29 of them were from within and moved up throughout the company.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great. So I noticed online you have a lot of great reviews. People love your pizza. What do customers tell you is one of the favorite things they love about your pizza?
Well, it's one of those things, pizza's such a great menu item that some people tell you if they're a sauce guy, man, I love the sauce. If they're a cheese guy, they love the cheese. And if you're a crust person, you love the crust. It's the combination of all 3 that make it a great pizza.
So you get a little bit of reviews on everything. And you have more than pizza, right? You have a pretty extensive menu, it looks like.
We do.
You have other things. And what's going into to choosing those items? Has there been thought process on what surrounds the pizza? Is the pizza still the central item on
absolutely.
the menu? You're kind of putting other items around to give people some variety?
Right. We have 4 different styles of pizza. We have a grandma style, a Detroit style, a regular traditional style, a New York style, and then a pan style. So I guess we have 5 different styles. I didn't even realize that we had.
Did you
5.
Start with all 5 at once? Just
we curious,
started with 1. And you just build from there?
Yes.
That's great. And how did you get, as far as the creative aspect of coming up with the different styles, did you work with your chef? Are you a chef to come up with those? Did you get inspiration from other places you've traveled and things like that?
Sure. A lot of it was travel and going to different pizza expos in Las Vegas. And we've traveled to Italy, traveled to London for different pizza tournaments. And I added a chef about 4.5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
He was fine dining and really was able to take us to the next level and add different things to the pizza.
That's awesome.
Yep.
So pizza can be a pretty competitive area, right? I mean, it could be there's a lot of competition, and pretty much every city you go to, there's a lot of competition. What sets you apart, do you feel, with your pizza and your business and how you do it? You've been exposed now to the Pizza Expo, to other competitions and travel, and so you've seen a lot. But What would you say sets you apart in what you do?
Well, there's a lot of people in Pittsburgh that might say they have the best pizza and such, but we've actually won international awards. 2016 we won best pan pizza in the world. Wow. 2018 we won best non-traditional pizza in the world. And this past April we went to Parma, Italy, and was named the best American pizza in Italy for the show. So we have some major awards. And then 2017, one of my guys won the largest pizza stretch, the world champion. So we're
stretching the dough,
yep.
like stretching it out.
So we're we took a 18-ounce dough ball and went to 108 centimeters.
Oh my gosh!
So we are 3-time world pizza champions in 2019, named best pizza in America, and then we also this year was named number 25 on independent pizza restaurants in the country.
Congratulations!
Thank
Those
you.
are pretty impressive. So it sounds like what really sets you apart and what makes you different is that you really promote the fact that you've won these competitions, that you have placed and ranked in all of these areas, and the taste and the quality that's been judged is really what helps to set you apart in the customer's mind. Then is that you're using that in a lot of your marketing and your communication.
Sure.
I'd imagine.
Yep. And a lot of times, we do make different pizzas that may not be on the menu at these competitions, but it's all our dough. Like it's our. We have one
starts
dough
from the same starting point as everything you're making.
Yeah, the same dough that you'd get with a pepperoni pizza is the same dough that won the world championship, a few times over. So I think that's special.
That's awesome. And speaking of competitions, I want to ask you, so you're working obviously in these competitions, not just yourself, but with a team. I see the photos, and I've seen the photos online. And what was that like to compete, and how did that impact your team? I guess part of that question is, how did it impact the core team that you took to the competition? But even how does that spill over to your organization and with the pride that you bring in back when you bring this award back? I mean, how does that affect the morale of the troops, so to speak?
Right. Well, you asked at the very beginning about what challenges do we have, and I think everybody, doesn't matter what small business you're in, has staffing issues. Right. That's the big one. Doesn't matter if you're a tree cutter or Jiffy Lube or pizza shop. Like, everybody has staffing issues. What we started to do was not so much worry about the hiring part of it. Sure, we still hire this, very extensively and hire smart, but what we really try to do is retain our employees, and that's where the competitions come in. We just went to a competition in Atlantic City in October, and we were able to take 22 of our managers there. I gave the keynote speech at the Pizza and Pasta Expo, so it was just great for morale to see I'm giving the keynote speech. These guys are all walking around in Caliente uniforms. Everybody knows us at all these competitions. I think they feel like they're part of something much larger than just a pizza shop in Pittsburgh, and that's important.
So it's a lot of pride, and it's also you're using these competitions as a way to celebrate your organization, as a way to build morale with the folks that are working for you, and that factors into the retention. Then I assume,
and that's the important part.
Has that been working for you? Do you see a spillover effect now that you've been in business for a number of years in terms of how it's impacted your ability to retain and the pride that you have in your organization?
Yeah, we have an original team member from 7 years ago. Wow. We have a slew of them from 5 years. We have a bunch from 4 years,
that's long retention
3 years
for this business.
Yeah, it really is. So we have another way we celebrate them is we give shirts out that will have years of service written on the sleeve with how many years they've worked.
That's great.
So we try to do a lot of different things. We really focus on retention over the last 2 years more than hiring. We still hire the same way we always hire, like everybody does, but we really have focused on retention.
And we're kind of already talking about this, but I was wondering about the culture that you're building here at Caliente, and what kind of organization you're trying to, when you think about it, like, what are you trying to build for yourself, for your team, for your employees? Like, what's the culture? What's it like to work? If somebody said, what's it like to work at Caliente in one of your locations? I mean, how would you describe the feel of working here and being here?
Well, I think even though we have 200 employees, we're still there's still a family feel to it. We have a Christmas party coming up here in a couple weeks, and we're going aboard the Gateway Clipper. We're shutting down the restaurants, taking everybody with us.
That's great.
So I think there's still a family aspect to it. Once I meet everybody, I pretty much, unless they've started within the last couple of weeks, I pretty much know everybody in the company, know their name. I've shook their hand. A lot of them we work side by side, especially when we open new restaurants. So I think there's a good culture. I think they feel, especially over the last couple of years, like we care about them. We do employee of the months and different things and different contests, and we always got different prizes we're offering. And I think they kind of feel that there's a lot of communication. We've used what I think is great for a small business of our size. we've really taken advantage of like the What's Up app.
Okay.
And we have one for each store. We have one for the whole entire company. Works out great for like somebody gets sick, they can put on there, hey, can you take my shift tonight?
Helps improve that communication, right?
Yeah, and communication's everything.
Which could be a problem with some organizations.
Yes.
So it sounds like you're tackling that head on and trying to make it easier and smoother for people to cover each other, for people to talk about what's going on in their lives, to be able to help each other within their work.
Right. And on top of that, we have first Tuesday of every month we have a managers meeting for all the managers. Third Tuesday of each month we have upper management meeting, and then every single Monday at 8:00 we have a phone meeting with all the general managers. So I think we're really structured, because what I found out early on when we opened the second store, the one we're sitting in here, it really wasn't that hard. Everybody says like second store is kiss of death, but I live 3 minutes from here. So I was able to hit this one and hit the original one, no problem. When we opened a third one up in Mount Lebanon, you know, everybody from the North Hills don't travel to the South Hills.
Right.
That was the challenge. You know, we had to do everything for make sure all the pizzas looked the same, to make sure that there was the communication was right, and we really had to structure it. So we got really, really tight about 3 or 4 years ago on making sure everything's made the same way, and then making sure that we have structure how we're going to actually run.
So I was going to ask you that. It was like that third store where you started to feel the growing pains a little bit,
Absolutely.
and you had to kind of get that management hierarchy in place, and it sounds like you have with the meetings. That's great, the communication, because I think that's where a lot of people fall short as they're growing their businesses to multiple locations, is falling short on those management meetings, which are so important to make sure that everybody's on the same page all the time and marching to the same sheet of music, so to speak. So it sounds like you're really tackling that.
Yeah, and I think in the beginning too, it was like, hey, this guy shows up on time, he's pretty good, here's a key, open a store. But as time went on, you know, we created general manager, assistant manager, kitchen manager, shift leader, and bar manager, and then we have a structure of a regional office manager, my regional chef, a regional marketing director, and a regional front of the house manager, you know, beverage director.
Because don't you find that people are motivated by different things? And I like what you're saying, because when you have those positions, you know, you're creating your hierarchy, which is important, but also some people are motivated by, people are motivated by their paycheck, but some people are motivated by the title, by the ability to be promoted to a position. And by doing what you're doing, you're creating those slots and that pride in, hey, I used to be at this level and now I'm assistant, or now I'm a manager, or now, you know, and that really, I think, helps build out your organization and the strengths of your people. And, you know, some people will look at titles and they'll kind of say, well, you know, they're just titles, but I think they're really important, because I think what a good leader does is find out what motivates his or her people. And some people are motivated by position and by title, not just money. They're actually motivated by responsibility. They're motivated by the work that they're doing, and they want to be able to call themselves something so they can describe not only to themselves but to others what it is that they do in the company. I mean, do you find that to be true?
Yeah, it's spot on. And the other part that we do is not just the title. We have job descriptions for every single position in the whole entire company. So if you get promoted, you sit down, here's the training checklist you're going to go through to get to that next spot, and here's the job description of what you're going to be doing.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that's really what I meant. You know, it's more than just a title. I was kind of calling it that, but it's really the job description and what goes into it. That's the meat of it, and that's what's important. And people really do. I think sometimes when people run companies, they forget how important and the pride people have in holding a position within the company. And some people because people are motivated by different things. Some people are motivated by time off, some by vacation, some by the pay, some by the work, some by the customers and the interaction with the customers, some by the position, some by, you know what I mean? And I think a good leader is looking at what's motivating his or her people and really trying to provide all opportunities for people to fit in the organization.
Right.
So
and that goes back to my very first answer was, we're trying to build careers for people. And that's why we're creating all these different positions and all these different pay structures. And it's important. I think that's, you know, we want to build, but you can only build as good as your people are. You're only as good as how good your people are.
Great.
And you have to care about them before they care about you.
Well said. One of the things I noticed on your menu is the pride you take in the beer selection. So there is a pretty extensive beer selection. It's also prominently displayed on your website. And I noticed from the comments that people were writing online is that not only were people commenting on the food and on the pizza, but they were commenting on the beer and how it pairs with the food. It seems like you've taken a lot of pride in it. You also have a lot of local selections, or Pennsylvania or Midwest selections, although you have other selections. What care has gone into that thought process? Obviously, you put a lot in. It's even in the name. So it's not just Caliente Pizza, it's Pizza and Draft House,
Correct.
Right? So you've obviously thought a lot about this and put a lot of care in. And could you tell me a little bit more about that? what drew you to the beer and to how it pairs with pizza, I guess, or the food that you serve, and how you cultivated or worked, I don't know, you might have did this yourself or worked with your chef on the selection process.
Right. I think it's really a great entrepreneurial lesson, because a lot of times when you open up a small business, you have a thought of this is exactly how it's going to go. You have a plan of how it's going to go. And I really was a pizza guy for 16 years. I never, ever thought about having a restaurant, and I definitely never thought about selling alcohol. So what happened was I realized early on that I just need to get people in the seats. That's all I cared about. And I realized 7 years ago that the craft beer was so big that if you could get a special keg, then you could fill the place. People would show up to drink it. One of the first ones that I noticed was Mad Elf by Trogs around Christmas time. And if people kept coming in and asking for it, and they would ask for it, and I called a distributor and say, can I get it? And they say, well, you haven't bought so much Trogs for the last year. And I said, well, I just opened 2 months ago. And my focus then shifted on getting all these special kegs, buying what I needed to. A lot of times in the beer world, there's a lot of different ways the distributors will work with you. And the way I became known was I wanted whatever was rare. And by getting all these rare beers, I kind of shifted my focus of being a pizza guy. I hired a guy that this is long before the chef. I hired a guy that I felt like could run the back of the kitchen for me in the pizzas, showed him how to do the pizzas my way. And then I became, quote unquote, the bar manager and ran the front of the house and learned the beer industry. So when I would go home at night after an 18, 19-hour day in the very beginning, rather than turning SportsCenter on, I was Googling breweries and Googling all the different...
Learning the trade.
Here in Pittsburgh, I would go and look at the Mad Maxes and the Fatheads and the Smoking Joes and try and look at all those different guys.
See what they're offering, too.
Absolutely.
So it sounds like some of what drove it, too, was the customer requests. And
Yes.
I think that's a smart entrepreneurial move on your part to adapt to what people are asking for and not so much trying to drive what you want to do.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you had that adaptive reaction to what people wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I really humbled myself and said, hey, I'm going to be known as the beer guy. We became, one of Pittsburgh's #1 premier spots for craft beer. We pushed that for 3 to 4 years. We started winning these international awards for pizza. Our focus, we started to get well known for our pizza. And then it was like, then I got named to the World Pizza Champions team, which is a team of 35 individuals. My chef and I got named from Pittsburgh. It's throughout the whole entire world. There's only 35 people on it. It was in the pizza industry, it's probably one of the biggest honors there is. And when that happened, it was like, all right, this pizza thing has finally come full circle. I kind of put the beer first for so long to run my company. And then I love pizza. It was like, all right, now that we're getting known for the pizza and I'm getting named on the team, it came full circle. So really what we've been doing the last year to brand is we're now pulling those back together and making sure that we don't forget our roots of growing up as the, premier spot for great craft beer in Pittsburgh. And then also, bringing that championship style pizza to Pittsburgh. So we're blending them together in our marketing and our branding over the last year, where I think in the first 3 to 4 years we focused on the beer. Last 2 years we really focused on the pizza. Now we're putting it all back together.
That's awesome.
So it's we've gone full circle in these 7 years.
That's great. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background. How did you come to be in this business as an owner? Did you grow up in the industry, or did you come to it in a different way, or were you inspired at home because
Sure.
Somebody's cooking at home, or what, how did you get to this point?
Sure. So my wife and I, we've been married for almost 20 years. We grew up right here in this Hampton community. And when I started delivering pizzas, I actually started right across the street, 100 yards from here.
Okay.
At 17, I fell in love with the team atmosphere and the team sport of the pizza industry, and that's what I loved. And we had our kids very young. So my daughter's now 19, my son's 17, and we were always broke but never poor. There's a difference mindset.
Exactly.
And I was working 5 jobs, 90 hours a week for a long time. Always keep my eye on having what we have now.
So this was a dream then at a long time ago to maybe get to this point at some.
It definitely was a goal, because what was going on was I was delivering pizzas at 3 places. I was also delivering the mail as a mailman, because everyone will tell you need a real job. So I went and got that quote unquote real job.
Right.
And then I also was counting money at the Civic Arena at night in the count room. So I worked those 5 jobs for 2.5, 3 years, 90 hours a week, with the goal of I'm going to open our own our own pizza shop.
And so you had to save up and really build up to it over
Yeah.
time then to get that first location.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is it a family business then? Since you mentioned your kids and they're getting older. I mean, have they been involved? Is it primarily you, or is it you and your wife, or you and your kids, and who's involved?
Sure. So my wife and I are definitely involved. We never worked together. She was a homemaker for all those years. You know, while I was out working all the jobs, she was at home making sure our kids were growing up the right way. And that was the whole thing. There was a lot of sacrifice that went into it on her part, a lot of sacrifice that went into it on my part. Never being there for anything, basically. And then when we opened up the restaurants, we figured out how to work together. Took a little bit of time, but we figured out what each of us does really, really well.
Okay.
And we stay in our lanes, we like to say. She is great at opening the restaurants. That's what she does, a lot of all the design work and stuff like that you see. That's all her. My daughter has worked a lot. Before she went on to college this year, she worked a lot in the marketing part. She's a great photographer, so she was taking all our photos, a lot of our video work. She's also helping in the office, doing some fouling and stuff like that. And my son has been making pizza since he was 10 years old.
Okay.
He's just got a really nice write-up in the Post-Gazette for pizza, called a Pizza Prodigy. He's been competing in a couple different competitions. He's also a shift leader out at our newest store in Monroeville.
Okay.
And he goes to Beatty Culinary right now, half a day of public school and then half a day to culinary school for the last 2 years. So, after high school, he wants to go and get a culinary degree and, keep working inside the family business.
That's great. So given that you have these 5 locations, you're still growing your business, I'm assuming that's something that you want to keep doing. What are the challenges you're facing now as you're growing? I mean, what are the obstacles now, I guess, to get to your next store, your next set of stores? Or do you have aspirations to grow more in this region or even beyond? I'm not sure. What are your plans?
So our plans are pretty simple. We want anybody in Western Pennsylvania to be able to get in their car and go 10 minutes for a Caliente pizza. It's that simple. We look at a place like Eaton Park, and you see how many Eaton Parks are all over Western Pennsylvania, and pizza and beer are a their family food, home style menu, and we're pizza's a great family food as well, and we feel like pizza and beer, we could be as many Eaton Parks as there could be that many Caliente pizza and draft houses as well.
Awesome. And tell me about the name Caliente. Where does that come from? Is that a family name, or is that where did that come from? So
when I bought Caliente, I bought it off of an Indian guy and a Turkish guy who had this store, and they had bought it for their nephew, the Turkish guy's nephew, and they were ready to sell it again because they actually have other businesses, and they were fantastic people to buy the business from. And they had told me, I said, why'd you name it Caliente? And they just kind of laughed. It was called Caliente Pizza and Bar. And the next week I was like, hey, really, why'd you name it Caliente? And he said, in Turkey, it's the #1 strip club. It's called Caliente.
Oh, gosh. And so this was actually a business you started by buying your first location then, huh?
Yeah, Caliente was 9 months old when we bought it.
Was it this location?
No, it was the one in
location?
Bloomfield, and it was Caliente Pizza and Bar.
So it actually existed, owned by somebody else. You came in and bought it, and that's how you got started from there.
Yep. And then one of the cool things is you were asking about the beer part of it. So when we were in there and I built the beer brand up, we were going to change the name, of course. We didn't want Caliente, but the liquor license took so long to get approved that by that time we were stuck with Caliente. And one of the research I was doing was watching Bar Rescue every night when I would go home.
Sure.
You can say anything you want about it, the yell and screaming, but there are some great tips in there.
I've seen the show.
And what John Taffer would say is sometimes he goes in, changes the whole entire name.
Right.
Sometimes he just tinkers with that last part. And I said, we're going to get rid of the and bar, and we're going to put Draft House in there.
Gotcha.
And we took down bar, and we put the Draft House
changed the branding a little bit and how you approached it.
Absolutely.
What gets you the most excited every day to get up for work and come in here? What gets you pumped up? What do you love to do?
Well, I think what I've done really well over the last 7 years is, I feel like I could only do 3 things and do 3 things really well. And everything else we hire out, and that's when we create different positions. Well, one of the things that I'm responsible for is leadership. And that's what gets me up in the morning, to motivate the team, to build up these meetings. We don't just have little meetings. We have meetings where everything's laid out and it's very thought of. To be able to talk with the different managers and see how they're feeling, what's going on, what's the challenges inside the business that I can help them.
Do you love the problem solving, the motivating,
I love the leadership,
leading and setting direction?
Absolutely. I love to walk in there and, give them the pound sign, blow it up, and just kind of enjoy the moment of it. Hey, how can I help you? What do you guys need? And, they'll say, hey, this challenge is going on, and I'll talk about like, well, this is how I would kind of work through it and stuff like that. So I think that's what gets me going, is definitely the leadership and seeing our team develop. That's the best part. You get a lot of guys that, may have started as a cook and now they're a general manager, and they're not perfect, but 2 or 3 years later, after they've been a general manager for a while, you see that they become close to perfect. I mean, they're really the way
it's got to be really enjoyable to see that growth and that change and that development and somebody else. And you mentioned 3 things. What were the other 2? You said leadership, and then what was the other thing?
So leadership is definitely one of the things that I do, and the second one would be the expansion. I'm really big into the expansion. And then for a while, it was the marketing, but then I brought in the marketing department. So really, my focus becomes the leadership, the expansion, and then it's just the overall branding, which is totally different than marketing.
What advice would you give to another entrepreneur out there that's maybe listening to this? Doesn't have to be in the restaurant business at all, but just in general. I mean, now that you have this experience and you've done this for a number of years now and really grew your organization, I mean, what types of things come to mind if somebody's just starting out or they have an idea that they want to grow?
Well, the thing is like everybody's in a different spot in their journey of entrepreneurship, and that's why I was telling you a little bit before that I started the Business Equation podcast. And what my podcast is it's just a 20-minute tip, and that's it, like each episode. So I've done 16 episodes so far. Each episode is like a 20-minute tip. So you'll see on different communities, Facebook or LinkedIn, where somebody say, man, we're having a problem with staffing. And I'll, how do you staff 200 employees? And I'll say, well, listen to this one. Or they'll say, man, I'm having really a hard time with cash flow right now. Well, here's a 20-minute tip on cash flow. So what I've really tried to do is have all these different tips. So I think, you have to know where you are on your journey. But I think the most important thing that I could say to an entrepreneur is you have to keep reading and keep learning. Like that's what's helped me the most. Is it's not that I just figured this all out. I'm an avid reader. If I'm not reading, I'm listening to a book in the car. These podcasts, I mean, I think they're fantastic because you're able to get some insight. 30 minutes in your car and you can learn something new. And I think that's what it is. You just have to keep learning. That's the whole trick of it.
Speaking of learning, before we go, tell me a little bit about this right here. So you wrote a book called The Pizza Equation, Slicing Up How to Run a Successful Pizza Enterprise. Looks very valuable, especially for somebody starting a pizza business. What motivated this? What's the book about?
Sure. So I always wanted to tell my story. Like I've always wanted to write a book. I feel like everything that I've done, I think has been could be duplicated. And that's the thing. It's not like
success leaves clues.
Yeah, it really does. And that's why I wanted to put it in a book. If it's somebody that's just thinking about how to run a pizza shop or a restaurant, or if it's someone who's been in the industry for a long time, I think there's still valuable stuff in there. But I wanted to write it, and I've been doing a lot of different seminars at these different expos. I've become a speaker and a presenter, and I thought that what's better than a business card but a book. So that was a lot.
Congratulations, and
thank you.
And thank you for sharing your wisdom, because not everybody does this. First off, it's a big feat to even write a book. Most people will never do this. But second, I mean, you had enough. You care enough about entrepreneurship and business and the restaurant industry enough to give back, because this is really a way. I mean, yes, you can promote yourself, and yes, it becomes a fancy business card. But it's also a way to give back and to tell people what you're doing and to be willing to share, which I think is great, because the more you give, the more you get. And unfortunately, there are people out there that keep it all too close to the vest, and you never really learn from. And there's great things that they accomplish that we never get to hear about. And that's part of what my podcast is about, is meeting with people and getting them to share so that we could all learn and get stronger as a community. So thank you for writing the book and for be willing to share your wisdom here today.
Well, yeah, you're welcome. I think one of the great things actually come out of the book, but one of the very cool things is when we go to these different expos and I'm teaching a seminar, I'll get somebody who says, hey, I'm in Florida and I want to open up a restaurant, and I want to come see your operations. I'm like, yeah, come see it. And I've actually taken a lot of people through, this year I've probably taken half a dozen people from across the country. They've flown in. I'll spend a whole day with them, just throw them in my car and let's go hit all 5 stores, and we'll give you the quick, you can see everything, ask me any questions you want, just because exactly what you said, like, I think sometimes when people hear the word give, it's not all just about giving finances. It's giving your time, giving your wisdom, like wherever, you.
That could be sometimes the most important part.
It is, man. Giving is so important in the whole scheme.
You can
of
raise
everything.
money for a business, but you don't always get, getting somebody to share their time is so valuable.
Yeah.
That was very gracious of you to do that. And what I love about that is to me, that tells me right away, that's an abundance mindset.
Yes.
That's somebody that right there knows that somebody opened up a pizzeria in Florida is not taking it out of yours, that you understand and you get that there's enough to go around. If you're successful and you run a great business, you're going to win in the end. And there's enough in this world to go around that we don't all have to be, unwilling to share that. And I love that you get that and that you have that abundance mindset of, hey, I'm willing to open up my doors and share what I know because you're not taking anything from me because I'm strong enough and confident enough in who I am and what my brand stands for to be able to do that. That says a lot about you.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And I think, I'm real big into self-awareness. I think you have to know who you are. Real big into gratitude, abundance, just the mindset of everything. You had asked, like, was this a dream? And I guess you could use the word dream, but it really was more of a vision. Like it was, a thought that I already felt like I already did it. Like I was really, trying to, everything I do, I plan out, and it's like, you see a great Olympic skier and they'll say, hey, I picture myself going down the slope already.
You envision it. You can see yourself in the position.
Yeah, you have to. Like I think that's the whole trick of it. There's, way more to it than just doing it.
If you talk to most people that build anything, build an enterprise, do something athletically, do something large in their life. If you talk to most people, they'll say what you just said. They have that sort of they can envision themselves in that role way before it ever happened. So that's awesome that you were able to do that and you saw. And it's got to be such a cool feeling to see it actually, to be living it, to walk into it.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
After you've seen that probably years ago when you were younger and everything. So that's awesome.
Right. Yeah, I think that goes back to, like you said, what makes me every day want to get up and go. It's just the fact that we're doing it. Like it's so cool. I mean, it's awesome. I absolutely love what we build. I love everything about it, and I couldn't be any happier doing what I'm doing.
Great, Nick. Thanks so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was great.
Thanks.